Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. It's the Devil's Advocate. It's been a while, people, but the boys are back in town. Yeah. Guys, how are you? Welcome back. Smash the granny out of the like button like you always do. You know where it is. Drum the thumb, people. We got Dave. We got Johnny. We're going to be going through some Devil's Advocation. We're going to be talking our way through the various pit holes of being a Tottenham fan right now. Are we guilty maybe of getting caught up in a Daniel Levy? I'm struggling to get my words out. Getting caught up in a Daniel Levy mind F as he's got him and his boy Vinny sort of convincing us that maybe this time it's different. Champions League title ambitions, Premier League title ambitions. The proof is in the pudding, Mr. Levy. How are you going to show us what your level of ambition really is with the sorts of transfer links and the transfer signings that we are going to be given? We got the Premier League fixtures as well. We got Dave here from the Irish Hotspur and Johnny to chat us through it today. Expect some debates, no doubt. Dave, how you doing, mate? Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm good, lad. I'm good. Can't complain, I suppose. Still sitting here waiting for signings and stuff like that. Still sitting here feeling like I need to get sick over that interview yesterday. It was like watching Married at First Sight. But apart from that, I'm pretty good, Sean.
It was like Married at First Sight, yeah, without the hot stuff, without the hot girls from Australia. Johnny, mate, how you doing, buddy? Welcome back. Thanks for coming, mate. How's things? New hat? Yeah, a new hat, Johnny.
A new hat? Man, it might be a new hat. It's a new top. Hey, look at this.
Winners,
winner, chicken dinner. I'm getting every bit of winners merchandise, right? My missus is going, what's all this merchandise? It's winning merchandise. Don't worry.
Is that a DH Gate
no. This is a club trained.
Club trained, homegrown. It's a Jamie Donnelly of football gear.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yesterday's loving. I thought they were going to get a room. I obviously been buttering up Daniel with a little bottle of wine. Spoke about his broad shoulders and how hard it had been. And I wondered where the conversation was going. But thankfully, it stayed on the football path. But no, listen, it was little and large. He's 6'2". He's about 5'2". It's an interesting show. Listen, I was quite positive. I got to be honest with you. It was a bit of a love fest. But for me, it's just because I know about Charrington. That was based on Charrington and Vinay, not on what was being said by Daniel. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys. Sorry about that. Talk about not being able to ingrace yourself within a kind of working class community. The way that they bond is over the bottle of red wine that they bought each other a few years back. I mean, it's not really the best way to put yourself into the right mindset. But listen, a lot of Tottenham fans, Dave, have been moaning forever that we don't have an owner, we don't have any CEO that comes out and says, what is the plan with regard our footballing ambitions? And they came out and said it. Now, first of all, that it's out there. Do you buy it? Do you buy into it? But more importantly, can we really hate them for saying what we've asked them to say? Because a lot of the channels that I've seen reacting to this are going, it's embarrassing. It's never going to happen. Like, you asked for it, you get it, and you're not happy. Now, obviously, what talk is cheap, Dave, right? But like in the initial instance, the talk is still good, right? The talk is still good.
Well, it's better. It's more like I want to hear. Like, when he was asked this previously after one of the fan forum interviews, he basically, when he was asked about what winning looks like, he basically sort of just said, entertaining football, try to win games. He didn't actually put any definitive outcome on it, whereas this time around, he has put a definitive outcome on it. The outcome is trying to challenge for the Premier League, and the outcome is also trying to challenge for the Champions League. Now, inadvertently, I think he's also put massive pressure on Thomas Frank now heading into this season by coming out with a statement like that, where, because before all the rhetoric around the Thomas Frank appointment was stability, stuff like that. Now, inadvertently, whether Daniel Levy likes it or not, that's the standard Frank's going to be held to now. How close are we to the Premier League? Is there a building block to it? Is there a building block to win the Champions League? So I wonder how Thomas Frank feels about that statement. But in general, look, I'll be honest, it's what I want to hear. I want to hear a bit of ambition from that boardroom, and it has changed from previous rhetoric that comes out. And look, you can only really give them credit in that regard. But my only hope is the fact that Daniel Levy has come out and said that is that there is legitimate truth to the change at board level and the change in ambition and the investment coming, and that's why he's speaking like that. Because but there also has to be a massive recognition. You've got to bring in the right quality players on the pitch, though, to be able to make them ambitions happen. In years gone by, and when you look at the hire and fire policy over his tenure, I think it works out at manager every 18 months to 2 years in general. I mean, it shows that he expects the manager to come in here and produce magic with a subpar squad. That sort of attitude towards Tottenham has to change. He now has to realise that quality on the pitch matters. Filling the gaps in your squad matters if you want to win the Premier League, if you want to win the Champions League. Look, in terms of the whole interview itself, I like the rhetoric. Don't get me wrong. That gives me a stiffy. But the rom-com I had to watch for 7 or 8 minutes was putrid. It was absolutely putrid. You got one guy buttering up the other guy. You know, they're gazing into each other's eyes like they're about to fucking kiss, and they're buttering each other's balls. It was embarrassing in that regard. You know, the low face going on with it. They were literally short of asking each other to go to the cinema. It was disgusting. But look, at the end of it, I like the rhetoric.
He definitely wasn't going in dry, was he? Dave, no, he was definitely oiling him up. What I found quite interesting was the story of the 10 characteristics. The 10 characteristics. What do we think those 10 characteristics might have been? Apparently, there was 30 candidates, of which Thomas the Frank engine, or Thomas Frank, was head and shoulders above everybody else. But I'd like to know, what were the 10 characteristics that they looked for? Can we guess in the if you go inside the in the chat, maybe list what you think the 10.
That's what he actually said. Was it 10 characteristics?
Yeah.
Okay. I would imagine that number 1 was developing youth, or one of them. Number 2 was to play attractive football. Number 3 was, can you do you have tactical adaptations that considers? I think. Listen, I think we can guess and speculate, Johnny, but
they were quite important. They made a point of saying that these were 10 important characteristics.
Are you sure it wasn't 10 characteristics they like within each other? No.
They had 40. They had 40 of those, Dave. Yeah, honestly,
it's the way you slurp that wine. It's just.
If he kept going on about how he's coped and his broad shoulders, and how hard he's had it. Yeah, no. Listen, look, for me, Vinny is the real deal. I said this to Sean when he was signed, because that came on top of Charrington. I was excited about Charrington in March. And then when Vinny came in, I knew this was proper. Proper things were going on. Vinny's a Oxford graduate, former oil trader. This guy is used to moving in top circles. And I think the thing is, he was the one responsible for bringing in Adidas. He was the one involved in bringing in Edu and Arteta, developing the women's game, right? Bringing in major sponsors. He was involved in Wembley Stadium. He was involved, in the 2012 Olympics. This guy is a proper mover. The other thing is, he is a guy that understands the importance of fans. Not like Donna Cullen and some of the things that she did, which alienated the fans. This guy's already arranged to meet fan groups. And I don't think it's hollow, Dave. I really don't.
Can I push you further on the Vinny one there just quickly, Johnny? Because, you listed off Vinny's achievements. Now, look, great achievements, but Scott Munn had similar achievements.
No.
Olympics, growing the women's AFL and stuff like that. I know, like, you're not a fan of Scott Munn, but I'm just trying to get at maybe what is the difference? Because listening to this Vinny CV and Scott Munn CV, they're very similar, but what is the difference?
Dave, sorry I don't want to cut you down here, but they're like fucking polar opposites, mate. Right?
No, that's what I'm asking. Like,
he's an Oxford graduate. Yeah, he's an Oxford graduate, right? He's an Oxford graduate. He's an oil trader, accountancy. Like, this guy is high level. When he left Arsenal after 16, 17 years, however long he was there, he was inundated with work from private equity companies in Saudi, in America, He was even offered a job at Newcastle, which he turned it down. So my point is, the reason why I'm so optimistic as opposed to my previous pessimism with everything in the board, as I said, was with Cherrington coming in, being the representative of Joe Lewis and the Enid Group, was that for this guy to come to Spurs, they had to pitch him. He ain't coming in just, oh, well, that is a job, right? I'm short of a job. What have you got for me? They would have had to have pitched him where they want to go. Where are you now? And what can you offer? Just the same as Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank never applied for this job. Spurs approached Thomas Frank for the job, like other clubs had. So they had to pitch him what their ambitions are. Can they finance those ambitions? Whether it's the hotel, overseeing the hotel, development of the women's football team, the White Webs development, and the actual the medical centres, working with Fabio, everything like that. He is going to be overseeing. Scott Munn was MIA. Did you ever see an interview like that with Scott Munn? I used to do a weekly, not weekly, but every now and again. Wanted, Scott Munn, have you seen this man? So much so that someone within the club obviously has seen my tweet and sent a picture of him at the boardroom. I think it was at might have been the Tamworth game. It sent me a picture of him, like with his coat pulled up. I'm not buying the Daniel Levy story. I'm buying the Peter Charrington and Vinay story, because those two are mega successful guys. And the other thing is these two guys are designed to come in and bring inward investment, because they have the credibility that the other members of the board don't have. And that's as simple as that. And so that's why I believe, and why I believed with Sean, we believed it for different reasons, but both of us thought we were going to spend money this summer. I believed it because Charrington and Vino were coming in, and there's inward investment coming in. Sean viewed it from a different angle. But I'm positive from that. So now I might be delusional, but it's for the first time. This is not something I believe every summer, nor have I believed it for many years. This is the first time I've actually made this statement. So,
do you think, guys? Let me ask you this, right? Do you think that Daniel Levy is doing, when he comes out with something like that last night, on the back of what's happened in the last 2 months at the football club, on the back of the fact that Donna Cullen's left, on the back of the fact that there's been a never-ending spate of rumours from Matt Law, who is the club journalist insider that gets the feed. I know Ali Gold gets his feed, but Matt Law's the Telegraph. He gets a lot of things fed to him. He was the guy that said it's a sell to buy summer. I never bought into that. But also all the way back in December, when there was NDAs that were explained with the girl Stavely, when there was the share issues, saying it for like better part of 7 months. Something is happening. Something's coming up. Whatever's going on. The fact that Daniel Levy's saying that now, he's never said it before, on the back of winning the Europa League. Now, at the same time, when he said things like failure's not an option, it's cringeworthy as fuck, because he has essentially failed for 24 of 25 years or 23 of 25 years. But he is competing in a world where you have to keep an eye on other teams. I've always said this when you're qualifying Daniel Levy as a good chairman. I've always said people that are just looking internally at the club, you have to keep an eye on what your peers are doing, right? Because you're not operating in a vacuum. Football is a never moving needle, right? And so there's a million variables. What your club's doing, the things that are affecting them, what your opponents are doing, the rules, yada yada yada. I won't hash over old ground here, but the fact that he said it now, is it more? I'll come to Dave first on this. Is it more in line with we've got our Tottenham back after 10 games, where he just took the opportunity when there was a good momentum in the energy in the fan base, and saying like, I'm finally going to come out and I'm going to be all about, how, sort of take advantage of the moment. And that obviously failed for like the next 18 months until we got lucky, or whatever, how you want to think of it, in the Europa League. Or Is he serious that for what the reasons that Johnny mentioned, that Charrington's come in, maybe we are close to an investment, even if the investment's not officially announced yet, and that might not happen for a few months, the fact that they know that it's done or it's being done, that he can say those things now, that we have the ambition to win the Premier League, because he's not a fucking idiot. He might misread the room many, many times, but he knows that people are going to hold him accountable to that. And he knows that at this moment in time, Chelsea are making major moves. United are making major moves. Liverpool have spent 250 million quid in the last month. City has spent 500 million in the last 6 months. Newcastle aren't going anywhere. We don't know what's happening with Villa. Arsenal are about to drop a bomber or two. Right. So if you're saying that the ambitions are Champions League and the Premier League, is he just saying that because it's a moment in time where he can say this shit and then fuck off into the background again? And if so, is that ridiculously foolish because Tottenham fans have been waiting so long to hear it that when you finally hear it, you're not going to forget it? Or do you think that there is actually some intention here because those things that we've been talking about in the background are actually manifesting into reality?
Do you know, that's a good question, lad, because look, the cynic in me goes, he's just trying to capitalize off the back of winning the Europa League, you know, buy some fanfare and stuff like that. And almost he has to come and say that now that we've delivered the Europa League. You know, the next step from that is the Premier League and the Champions League. That's obviously the next step. But this guy hasn't just come out and said shit like this before, even when fans have wanted him to. He could have done this over the years. He's refused not to. He's always sort of, you know, been on the more cautious side. I would hope the only reason why he's come out and said it is because they are anticipating a big summer here at Tottenham Hotspur, and that whatever they've got lined up, whether it's outward investment from outside, whether it's, you know, Joe Lewis's family or whatever that want to pump the investment in, I would hope that's the only reason why he's coming out and saying it. If he's coming out trying to capitalize off the back of the Europa League, then he's just lost all touch of reality, to be quite frank with you. So for me, I would hope it's because there's investment there ready to go and have a big summer.
I think
Johnny, what's your? Let me same question to you, Johnny. But let me add a little spicy little nuance there for you to run with as well. If you agree with Dave, and let me know if you don't, but if you do,
dropping some wasabi sauce on me, are you?
Yeah, a little bit of Tabasco just to give you a little bit of a kick here. If you believe in the same argument that there may be that you hope that this time it's for real, this time he means business, then the second half of the show, or the second quarter of the 4-quarter show, we're going to be starting to move into the world of like transfers, not just rumors, but prioritizing. Is it the right time to say it when you've just gone and got Matisse Tell that has been universally splitting the fan base like everything else around whether that is a sign of intention when other clubs that we've just mentioned are looking at Cunha and Mbumo, fucking Gyökeres, Ekitike, yada, 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 and we're looking at Matisse Tell. We've got Matisse Tell, and I know, you know, everyone feels differently. I'm fine with him. And then after that, we're now looking at Callum Owendo. You know, it's like, okay, if you're going to say that shit, at least time it with a link that is going to make everyone go, fucking hell. But no one knew who Callum Owendo was 2 days ago. Now everyone's calling him the new Jermaine Defoe. It's a little bit of a wild one.
Calm down.
Yeah, go where you want with it, mate.
Look, I said at the time that I didn't want to see us spend money on Matthias Tell until I knew how much money we had to spend in the transfer window. If we were spending this money on Matthias Tell, which in fairness, we're not spending the money on Matthias Tell, it's money that we're owed by Harry Kane from Bayern for Harry Kane. I have to judge this by the end of the window. I can't judge it now, Sean, because I said to you, I'm very happy to take Matthias Tell with Thomas Frank. Why is that? Because if you look back on Bryan Mbeumo when he signed for Thomas Frank, similar age, what you had was a guy with fantastic pace, great feet, but he was raw and his finishing was all over the place. What I see with Matthias Tell is raw, great pace, good feet. I can see him turning him into a Bryan Mbeumo because I don't think he'll play out the wing. I think we've had this conversation before. I think he'll play more as an inside forward.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I look at this as if I can only rate it at the end of the window. If Tell was using up the money that should have been coming in from Bayern, and we don't have the money, then I will complain, because we need oven-cooked, oven-ready now players. And Tell will develop. He'll be a good player, but he's not ready right this minute. So I would have liked to see that money gone to an Mbeumo or an Eze or a Douglas Luiz or whoever. So it's hard for me to say now, but I'm going to say that this isn't a window of any repute if you do not buy at least 2 signings that make the fans go, wow, right? And those would be an Eze and a Mbeumo, a Semenya.
Mbeumo's off, by the way. From what I've seen everywhere today, it's done. He's not coming to Tottenham. So
listen, I'm not surprised. I mean, he's done his best, and there'll be fans out there saying it's Levy's fault he didn't make the bid. Levy tried everything because he wanted to give Thomas Frank everything that he wants. So, if the money can't convince him and Thomas Frank can't convince him, like he's been with him for 5 years, he needs to change the scenery. I understand that. And whatever we may think of the pool, Man United are still Man United, one of the biggest clubs in world football. So I get that. But for fans to be satisfied in any shape, way or form, they have to show intent. And I'm not talking about going to buy 5 players for 20 million. That's not going to prove intent. I mean, let's
just sort of rehash a little bit here. Matisse Tell's initial deal, and I agree with you, even though it's devil's advocate, it's difficult to disagree with that. The Matisse Tell deal was clearly already organised, right? It was clearly already done. Like, I don't think necessarily Thomas Frank might have been able to come in if he really felt differently and gone, mate, I don't want this guy. I don't want him. He's not my type of player. I just don't rate him. If that was part of the narrative, then maybe there was some sort of wiggle room. But ultimately, I think that if Thomas Frank was like, okay, that's fine, then it was always going to happen in some form or fashion. And it was just what the price point was.
It was an option. It wasn't, it was an option. Yes, we would have been thrown away £7.2 million. But we're supposed to used to doing that. Look how much we throw away on loan signings of
managers,
Burner and managers and all the rest of it. So where I
was going to go with it was let's put the Matisse Tell money and just assume for a second that was already allocated for the most part, right?
Yeah,
and maybe we shaved a little bit off by the relative underperformance from the top end of expectations.
Yeah,
but the day after Matisse Tell was signed, we allegedly put in a £70 million bid for Mark Gahey. And then after that, which was rejected, after that, the Matt Law article, Sell to Buy Summer's on its way. So that's one of the reasons why I was like, I just don't buy it, because how are we going to sell to buy? If the sell to buy meant not about squad movements, but more around just there's no money in the pot. And that was based on a presumption that we probably weren't going to win the Europa League, because how can you really factor in you're going to win the Europa League into all likely forecasts, right? You can't. So it doesn't happen. So the fact that we had 70 million for Mark Gahey on the final day after the Matisse Tell thing was done, and then you get the Matt Law article saying, sell to buy. Then you get the shits going on with the boardroom, yada yada yada. The Donna Cullen, the Charrington, the Vinny coming in, everything's starting to move in the right direction. Then you win the fucking Europa League, get yourself back into an extra maybe 100 million quid in revenue if you get out of the group stages, get to the last 16 or something. Then on that basis, Matisse Tell money to one side, there is at least enough money, if we're just following the logic of that thought process. And if you can disagree if you want, that maybe the whole Gahey bid was a smokescreen, but on the basis that there was truth to it, there's at least money for a monster, absent the Champions League money.
Well, we got 17
and then with the Champions League money, with the doubling of the match day events, all the non-match day events, all that shit, there should be at least enough money for two monsters. Right?
It's a cash fest, right? I said we had this conversation. We've gone from no European football to now Champions League football. We've gone from 6 non-football events to 30 non-football events. right? We've gone from a Champions League, which we were in 2019, where it was nice money, but not the huge amounts of money that are going to be in it this time, and the extra 2 games, right? And the extra revenue and the price of the
sponsorship deals.
Yeah,
we're about to sue the granny out of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. You know?
Yeah, bonuses, right? First of all, you get bonuses for winning in Europe. So they would have got for winning the Europa League. Then they would have got bonuses for qualifying for the Champions League within their sponsors, right? With AIA. Then they'll get bonuses for it's plus. Plus, we're getting £17 million for Pierre Højbjerg, right? Yeah. That's coming in. Plus, we'll be getting money for Bissouma. Bissouma, right? That's even before you get started. Listen, I am optimistic about it. I see there somebody put there, Joseph. He put big up the panel. We have seen the club pitch plans to previous appointments come to the club, but become disillusioned. Right? I don't think Vinny, when he's coming to the club, he's not wet behind this. This isn't a manager. This is a guy who comes with a wealth of financial knowledge, has been at a football club for years on end. And just to let you know, he took 4 executive leadership at Arsenal, right, in 2020. Forget all the years he'd been there before. Overseeing all aspects of the club's operations, including football, commercial, financial, administrative functions, leading strategic planning to restore Arsenal's competitiveness in the Premier League and European Championship, supporting Arteta's vision, facilitating squad investments, fostering a cultural rebuild that saw Arsenal return as title challengers, managing off-field growth, including global brand expansion, digital initiatives and infrastructure projects, the naming rights, and he also was instrumental in getting the Adidas deal. So this is a guy who's not come here to play tiddlywinks, right? He's not Scott Munn. They're worlds apart. And I just think that there's no way that this guy's come in here to see a club go backwards. You know, if I look at Arsenal, if you look back before the March when Arsenal fans had had enough and they marched on Kroenke's office saying, where's our investment? Where's the money? Right? He was the guy that was in there who oversaw that spend, where we saw Arsenal spend serious amounts of money. When he came into that role, it just coincided when he came into the role to take over after Gazidis, was it? Is it Gazidis or Gazidis, who was the CEO of Arsenal? So I am hopeful that the reason why this guy's come on board is there is money to spend. But the proof is in the pudding. Talk is the cheapest commodity in this football business. Well, in any business, but very much so in this. And if that window closes, Sean and Dave, on the 31st or the 1st, and we haven't done the business, I'm going on the march because I'll be livid. I'll be livid.
100%. 100%. Dave, I'll bring you in. Just give me 2 seconds, Dave. I don't want to. I know you want to. Got a couple of super chats that I've been building up here. Just want to just quickly jump in. The Big D, appreciate you, mate. Member for 17 months. Massively loyal man. Thanks very much. One big winger and a CDM and 1 or 2 unknowns. We might talk about those 1 or 2 unknowns in a minute. In fact, there's one that's actually very known, and he's a player that all Tottenham fans have been saying for the last. We got Johnson. We should have got this guy. Now suddenly we're linked with this guy. And maybe now people are going, well, not that guy. It's always fascinating how the Tottenham fan base works. We'll come to that in a little while, but thank you very much for the loyalty, mate. Tottenham Hotspur, THFC, Dermatron. Good to see you, mate. Thank you very much for the super sticker, buddy. Love you to pieces, mate. Thanks very much. He says, a user is also saying, as a Spurs fan, I know business will never be conducted between filth. West Ham, Chelsea. So these reports of any players from those clubs is tosh. It's fair point. But West Ham are going through some very specific nuances with their own leadership at the moment. The Gold family's getting, and the Sullivan family might be getting, and then there's Kinsky might be selling his money to Trip Smith, who's a Chelsea guy, or he's involved with Blue Coat, and those guys have a different relationship. Maybe there's a changing of the guard with regards to the old form, the old relationships between the clubs. We shall see. We'll talk about that when we come to it in the second half of the show. Thank you very much for the super chat. And Dermatron's back again. Dermo, very nice you, mate. Really appreciate you, buddy. Big up Sean, Dave and Johnny. We need ready-made players for now because we need to back Frank. Give him a chance to win, but we are Spurs. We will rise. We will win. We are Tottenham Hotspur. Love that, mate. Love that positivity, bro. It's very easy for everyone to lean towards the negative. It's very easy to predict the losing lottery numbers in life, Dermo. And you are someone that always leans, as far as I know, mate, always leans towards the greater good, which is remembering how big and monstrous Tottenham Hotspur always were, and hopefully we will become again. Thank you so much for the super chat, my man. You're an absolute legend. And Moondoggy, member for 36 months. 3 years of your life, my man, has been a part of this channel, supporting me the whole way, mate. I would absolutely love you, mate. Thank you so much, Moondog. Good evening, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Dave. What say you regarding the kind of format we were just talking about there? Like, there surely is money to spend, right, for a bunch of different reasons.
I would hope so. But, the thing is, I know on evidence that Scott Munn didn't do a good job at Tottenham. When he came in, he came out in a City group with huge fanfare. Didn't make the changes everyone was expecting him to do. We had a guy there not so long ago brought in, supposed to be a genius at getting naming rights. Didn't get the job done for whatever reason. Yeah, Tottenham may have chose not to because they realised maybe they were getting more recognition for it being named the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I've seen stuff like this happen before. Being reported, it's close, like the naming rights and everything else, and never ever materialised. So the cynic in me, and then when you add into it, signing on Matisse Tell again, giving Ben Davies another a year extension in his contract, and yet we're led to believe that all these big signings are coming. Well, if all these big signings are coming, why are you automatically taking up 2 squad spots and giving yourself extra work to do then this summer? And that's where sort of my concern comes in around it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sitting here hoping that you boys are right. I want you to be right. I want this club to be successful. That's all I ever want. But the cynic in me of what's gone on in years gone by, how much of a change is Vinay really going to make at Tottenham? And the reason why I asked that is when Vinay walked into Arsenal, there was an acknowledgement from the board that he was going to put his son in place and they were going to try and go at it properly with Arsenal. At Tottenham Hotspur, you could argue that maybe that interview was their statement of intent to say what they're going after. But again, I think there's been so much false dawns in years gone by and false promises that we Spurs fans are going to have to see the proof in the pudding first. And at the end of the day, he's got to earn my trust, Daniel Levy, And for me, I'm going to sit back and wait and see how the transfer window unfolds, because giving Ben Davies a new contract doesn't stink of major investment. Signing Thomas Frank on the dotted line, because where I was at, under Postecoglou, the next logical conclusion, and I think for any fan, if we were given Ange the chance next season, you had to go out and invest in some serious quality, or it was never going to work. Bringing in Thomas Frank, what did they like that he done at Brentford? Developing players that they brought in off a data-led scouting model, and that data-led scouting model is set up to find undervalued players in the market, bring them in, develop them, and sell them on for huge profits. We also brought in a data-led scouting model in that. And then you're trying to match Frank up with it, which, look, credit to the club, that's something we've asked for before. But then if that's what they're doing in that regard, then I struggle to see the big money signings coming in. So for me, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait and see how it pans out. At the end, I've been here before. We've been linked to all these guys, and then we've gone in and get guys that Danny Rose and everyone else has had to go and Google. So for me, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait and see how it unfolds, because giving Davies a year extension is not a statement of intent. Bringing Matisse Tell in, look, as much potential as he has, we're at the point now, if we want to compete for the Premier League, which Daniel Levy has now said he does in the Champions League, you've got to bring in the players to do it. Asking Thomas Frank to develop Matisse Tell and go and win a Champions League with this guy in our starting lineup and stuff and be ready-made to go is a huge ask at the end of the day. So that's where my concerns come in. When I look at the business done so far compared to other clubs, I look at the manager appointment we've made, and we've made it off the back of what he's done at Brighton. We also have a data-led scouting model that's sort of set up to sort of do the same. That's where I'm a bit hesitant to say, yeah, we're going to go out and have a massive summer, because I've seen all these links before and they've never materialised.
Clubs haven't made, there's lots of clubs, Dave, that have made no signings. And just to put your mind at ease, the cynic.
Well, I don't care about the clubs that haven't.
No, I understand. But the cynic in me,
signings.
Yeah, no, I understand. But the cynic in me saw the Ben Davies signing in a completely different light to you. I saw Ben Davies signing as Spurs been a cynical move to put him on a 1-year contract so they could sell him to Wrexham for a nominal
flaw
fee
in
of
that,
£2
though,
million.
John. But there's a flaw in that. If Ben Davies being offered, is Ben Davies on 85k a week at Tottenham, Wrexham ain't going to offer him the 85k a week. So if you're Ben Davies, are you going to make that move knowing you can just sign on after the year anyway? You're Ben Davies, you're 33 years of age. You've got retirement around the corner. You're going to stay at Tottenham. You're going to take that 85 grand for the season to give yourself an extra few years to decide what you want to do when your career is finished and that. So the fact that we sign him on the dotted line, he's on 85k a week. He ain't going anywhere this summer. I can bet your bottom dollar.
Okay, but on that basis though, is he in a lower lying back three? Has he? Dave, I remember going back 3 years on your channel, mate, when me and you were having ding dongs about Eric Dyer and Ben Davies, and I was like, let's not kind of like overlap the two. Ben Davies is a solid 7. He doesn't let you down too often. He's got a ceiling, but he doesn't let you down. Eric Dyer was going through that kind of like horrendous period where he was just making mistake after mistake after mistake. But in a lower lying horses for courses conversation here, if Tottenham have, like when we both hope, when Johnny and I hope that there's substantial budgets, that doesn't mean that there's endless pots of money. And that if you're sitting there thinking, well, we're not really sure about Vescovic, how close he is to being ready. We're not really sure about Ash Phillips. Ben Davies counts as homegrown for the Premier League. He doesn't count as homegrown for the Champions League. But in a back three system, he might be able to offer some value on the left side of a back three. Even in a back two, if needs must, at a deeper line, he's not the end of the world. And when people are sitting there, there's a very real and a very correct question that's being asked around who is it that's going to develop these players? Like who's going to develop Matisse Tell? Who's going to develop Mikey Moore? If Sonny leaves, where is this kind of experience going to get sort of distributed and disseminated? At the back end of the pitch, you can make the same argument with all these young players that we've got coming through that are supposed to be top draw talents, but that will need to be the beneficiary of learning off of someone. And if you don't have someone like Ben Davies around, then you're going to have to replace him with someone else, which will be that cock block to maybe their development. And so Ben Davies staying around for a year doesn't necessitate that he's going to be a major part of the playing squad, but maybe he's going to play that kind of ambassador.
We say that, but you look at the backup role. When this has been the common thing with Davies last few years, people that make the case for him, but he still plays 20-odd games a season. The reality is, when he plays a lot of them games, we lose the majority of the time. And that's the reality of it. And this is my whole point. If we are really pushing on to win a Premier League, if we're really trying to push on to win a Champions League, you cut that. You've got Romero, Van der Ven, you've got Danzo, you've got Dragusin, and if you want to get rid of Davies and you think Romero's going, okay, go on and buy another, quality centre-back. The fact that you're giving Ben Davies that contract to stay around another year, at some point, Thomas Frank is going to have to play him. Not only him, but there'll be others that will be putting around him around the rotation. We'll probably end up losing the game. That's what usually happens when we rotate. And then everyone will sit there and go, the manager has to make it work. And this is what I keep saying. This is what I've been banging on the door about the last few years. Yeah, there's an element of that. But also,
do we know the specifics of that option, though?
I just feel like we're making similar mistakes. You look at Ben Davies. What has he offered? He hasn't really offered too much to Tottenham bar off the field stuff. Don't get me wrong. He is a nice
runs the book club, Dave. He runs the book club. Without the book club, they'd all be literate.
Ben Davies does so much off the pitch, but is that worth 85k a week? I'm not quite so sure.
No, that's fair enough. But let me ask you: do we know the specifics, Dave? Do we know the specifics of the option? Was the option maybe something where if the player wanted it, they could extend? Do we know whether or not it was a club
that had to extend it? It was Tottenham's option to extend the contract.
Tottenham's option to extend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they'll sell him for a nominal fee to Wrexham.
If you're Ben Davies, you're not going to take a wage reduction. You're not coming off that. He's not going to get 85k a week anywhere else, and he's not going to take a wage reduction.
Hang on. Right. The difference is, what you got to remember is that Wrexham are funded by the Disney film, right? By that whole thing, and the massive. Listen, their sponsorship deals dwarfed any sponsorship deals that were being achieved by any club in the National League, in the second division, and in the first division. And they likely could do the same in the Championship because they are a global brand now. You've got people going to Wrexham from America and all around the world because they've watched the programme. That's what people do. So
I get that, but I'm looking at Wrexham's player wages here. The highest wage is 7,000. That's the highest paid wage that
won't
player
be going forward, though, will it?
No,
why are we guilty here of thinking? Because I think this 2 trophy 25 years makes a good point. Someone else said it to me in a comment on a previous video that Swansea and Wrexham, it's like Tottenham and Arsenal. Just doesn't.
Yeah, well, we'll see, won't we? We'll see.
It's a non-runner. If you're Ben Davies, you're not giving up that 85k a week. You take a step down to the Championship, you take a step down to Wrexham. They're not going to be able to pay you that. They're just not, and you ain't taking it. If you're Ben Davies and you're his advisor saying to him, take that 85k a week. You're done at the end of next season. You can go wherever you want. You'll get a signing on fee and stuff like that. He ain't giving up the 85k a week now. He's here for the season.
Are you making the argument then that is it just a specific about Ben Davies not being good enough, or is the argument here more around that this is a demonstration that Daniel Levy and Vinny were talking a load of bollocks? Is that the point you're making?
Yeah.
Look, don't get me wrong. Ben Davies isn't good enough moving forward, but I'm saying, he said words, but actions on the build up to them words don't exactly match up. He said he's got ambition, but then some of the signings we made already, bringing in Matisse Tell, who was supposed to solve a problem last January, didn't do it. Now I maintain you should never have put that on his shoulders in the first place. That was piss poor from Tottenham's behalf. But then you're also bringing him to solve problem this summer that he already didn't solve in the couple of months he was here. He's a guy that you need to develop. You develop him, he can become that player, but he's nowhere near it now. And I just looking at it, and it's like actions and words. I'm a firm believer. Show me actions. Words are all. Anyone can say words. Show me actions.
Okay. So then here's where I'll spin the conversation, and let's look at the actions that are maybe happening. Now, obviously, it takes 3 people to make a transfer work, right? The buying club, the selling club, and the player. It looks like Tottenham were very much interested and asking Brentford to be kept informed, and £70 million wasn't going to be a problem. But Mbeumo's basically said, look, I want to go to United. United will figure it out. So let's just sort of write that one off. A new name that has kind of emerged today out of the Guardian Sport, by the way, which, is a decent enough sort of journalist to mention here, is a player that I want to know how the fan base is going to react to this, because I've spent so many hours on so many streams with people saying all last season, why the fuck did we spent 50 million quid on Brennan Johnson, who ended up, by the way, getting 21 goals last term. Why did we get him when we could have got Mohamed Kudos? And now, today, Mohamed Kudos is linked with Tottenham. West Ham are in a predicament. They're in a bit of a sort of weird situation with regards. First of all, the player wants to go. He didn't have a great season last year, if I'm entirely honest. No one at West Ham did. But the season before, he absolutely smashed it out of the park. He's going to leave. Paquetá's going to leave. And maybe Jared Bowen too. If you are early on the Mohamed Kudos deal, then we'll talk about the viability of it. But what I'm already seeing in the Tottenham fan base is people that were not that long ago going, why the fuck did we sign Brennan Johnson? We could have got Mohamed Kudos. And as soon as we're linked to Mohamed Kudos, they're going, I don't want Mohamed Kudos. So you can't make it up. But what's your take on the Kudos story? Can you see Tottenham and West Ham doing business here, boys? Especially when, I know that historically we don't have that sort of, like Chelsea, we don't do business, but things are changing at West Ham at ownership level, right? David Gould died died in 2021. And then his daughter, his other daughter died as well. God bless her and him. But his other daughter that received the club's 25% ownership, that was in probate. That's now been released from probate. She's desperate to sell. Kinsky, the Czech Republic guy who owns, I think it's 10% or 11%. He says he's happy to move on if he can double his money. Sullivan doesn't want to sell, but might get shipped out if this guy, Trip Smith, that already owns 10%, is going to take on the David Gould and the Kinsky owns 25%. So he'll end up with 60% ownership of West Ham, and Sullivan only has 40%. But Trip Smith is a blue co-owner who owns Chelsea. So it's all very weird and incestuous. But under new ownership, you might have new relationships. So are we too quick to write off a story that Tottenham and West Ham could do business if there needs to be some liquidations out of West Ham for a bunch of different reasons, some of which include ownership change, and therefore the people that used to hate Tottenham are no longer calling the shots at West Ham United, Dave?
I'd love us to do business with West Ham. We've done great business with West Ham before. Carrick, Defoe, players like that. We've done great business with West Ham down the years. I have no problem doing business with West Ham, and often sometimes we've sold some of our shite onto them as well. So for me, I wouldn't mind getting back doing some business with West Ham. I think they are a club that do get in so some really good players at a time. But look, for me, with the Kudos one, I was actually a little bit different on that one, Sean. Jack was a long-term admirer of Kudos. He kept on saying to me, Kudos. And I was like, yeah, still doesn't whet my appetite. Still a bit of an unknown, out in the Dutch league. I've seen players get the fanfare around the Dutch league before and not really being able to replicate it, whether they've moved to the La Liga, Italian league, or the Premier League. They haven't really been able to replicate that. So initially I was a bit hesitant. However, seeing the guy at West Ham and seeing what he can produce. And I remember there was a game against us. He single-handedly dismantled us in one of them games. I really like Kudos. I think he's a player that I would enjoy watching at Tottenham Hotspur. I think he's got that bit of flair about him in possession, and I think he's got that bit of unpredictability. He can score some great goals. And for me, he's a player I really like us to go after, actually. I think you could pull him out of West Ham for cheaper than what his release clause is. I think the rumour is there's an 85 million release clause. If
50 million quid is the asking price. I think West Ham have come out. There's some like top hammers, whatever you want to call them, that have been saying, sources inside the club say if West Ham get 50 million quid to 55 million quid, with the majority up front, not all of it, but the majority up front, then West Ham would do business. So you put that in the stack rank of him, Xavi Simons, which has got a 60 million euro release fee. You put that against Semenyo, that's probably 70 million quid. But if we hang around and sleep on Semenyo, with Bournemouth looking to also sell Kluivert, looking to sell Zabarnyi, looking to sell Kirkes, and they've already sold Huijsen, then all of a sudden, as every domino falls in that Bournemouth team, Bournemouth are less and less likely to accept normal asking prices. They're going to dial that number up, right? So in a kind of a value for money trade here, Dave, where does Kudos at 50 million quid? Is that above or below Xavi Simons? Is that above or below Semenyo or Jack Grealish? What's your thoughts?
Look, for me, I like between Mbeumo, Eze, Kudos, and Semenyo, I'd like two of them. I think two of them would really get me excited for watching us going forward next season because, for me, Thomas Frank, he'll come in here. You'd hope he brings that defensive structure, the same from the set pieces, which would make us a bit more solid. Yeah. But you would presume Ange Postecoglou played a very, very high line and very high up the pitch compared to what most managers would. So that will be dropped back a little bit, which means you are going to rely, if you are bringing more defensive structure, you're not as gung-ho going forward, which means you are going to limit the amount of chances that you create compared to last season and stuff like that. And I'd argue last season, if we had a better front line, we could have had a different outcome. I think a lot of the players across that front line are very underwhelming. And if we're going to sell Son, you're relying on a lot of inexperienced players who doesn't really have the numbers season in, season out to carry that forward line. In order to move Son on, you have to bring in two players that can fill that vacuum, and then you give the other players around it time to develop. So for me, two of them players are very, very important. Look, if it comes to Kudos and Eze, I would actually prefer Eze. Don't get me wrong. But I have become a really big fan of Kudos over the last 2 years. And then one of Mbeumo and Semenyo, and that'll be me. I'll shut up about the forward line. Because then once you bring them in, you give Udogie time to develop. You give Micky more time to develop. You give Tell time to develop. So I think it's imperative that we get two of them for sure. Xavi Simons, he's a name that's been bandied about a lot. I know Martin Knightsbridge, his son, knows him one way or another. And they rate him very, 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 very highly. But I'm yet to really see him sort of break out. I know Danny Kiriakou rates him highly as well. But for me, I would rather go for players right now that have proven they can do it in the Premier League.
You know what's quite interesting? What you were saying there, this misconception of Thomas Frank being this pragmatic manager. The one thing I've noticed all through his career, Sean, is no matter who he plays, no matter how poor his squad or his team may be, he's one of these managers that seems to set up and always creates chances. He just knows how to create chances for his team. And as many chances and as many goals and assists Bryan Mbeumo got last season, the team underperformed the chances that he created, because he was creating chances left, right, and centre, but they weren't putting them away. And I think this misconception that suddenly we're going to go to this sort of pragmatic. I'm not saying
it's going to be a bit more pragmatic than what we've seen on the ranch.
Well, that's not difficult, because we were like, honestly, it's like kamikaze. Yeah. We had more holes than a Swiss cheese. We're going to be playing further back, but it's common sense. There's a reason why at Brentford they called him the professor. Every intricate detail. First day of training, he's probably lining them up saying, right, who can throw a ball? Right, who's got the longest throw? He will use everything. And as Sean and I have said time and time again, right, I'm just looking forward to the fact when we get a free kick 15 yards inside someone else's, our opponent's half, we're not passing the ball backwards. Yeah. Right, we're going to take a free kick. Our defenders are going to go forward and try and get in on the end of it. I think you'll find that this is a guy, he likes to overload on the flanks with triangles. But for this system to work, he needs a monster six. And I think until we start seeing, the players coming in, and like we've seen him now today, he's turned up. They've released the
Does anyone know about that Brazilian kid that's been linked for CDM?
Yes, no, he's Colombian. He's the Colombian guy from Palmeiras. Yes,
Richard Rios. Yeah, he's class.
Richard Rios. He was fantastic in the World Club Cup game. I must say though, Thomas Franck. He's that's his outfit. That's how you're going to be seeing him. Yeah, casual dress, nice hairdo.
That's one thing I do like about Thomas Frank is he realizes the small margins can have can make a massive difference,
sure.
And a massive difference in your outcome come the end of the season. The set pieces, I will relish the what would you call it? The detail around set pieces, because people act like it's a new thing. It's not. That's one of your basics that older teams used to make sure they were solid on. Defending set pieces and stuff like that. I am looking forward to.
That's the thing.
Small details mattering again.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With him, it's the margins. You've got to remember, he's come from a club where every little minute detail, where he could gain an inch to maybe get that advantage, because he knows his squad isn't good enough. He knows his team isn't good enough when you're playing the likes of Man City, whatever. But he's gone there. He's gone to Man City and won. He's gone to teams and won against the odds. But I think when he comes to Spurs, he's not going to rest on his laurels. He'll still be looking to get those margins that I felt that the last 2 years that this club has not looked to exploit since Conte left, when we had Vino, whatever his name was, the set piece coach, where we looked to get something out of every set piece or every situation. That's what he does, right?
Can I ask a question on the set pieces, actually, just quickly? I find it an interesting talking point. Now, he only conceded 2 set-piece goals last season at Brentford all season long, the lowest in the league, which is unbelievable. Yeah. And I think they scored 13 up the other end, which shows it's effective. But also, you go and listen to any of them Brentford players, and you listen to Thomas Frank, they're incentivized from set pieces. At Tottenham, I would argue they're probably not incentivized from set pieces. How much of a difference does that actually make on the players' willingness to be able to defend and make it as impactful? Is that something they might have to look at?
What do you mean by incentivized by set pieces?
Get bonuses at Brentford for, meeting certain metrics from set pieces, from defensive set pieces and attacking set pieces. There was a player there from Brentford not so long ago. Was it Ben? No, maybe not Ben Mee, but it was a player that done the Ben Foster podcast. He was speaking about it. Thomas Frank has spoke about them being incentivized at set pieces. Okay. And my question is, do you think you'd be able to bring that to Tottenham and get the same output if there's no incentivization there? Because he can sit there and say, I want you to do this, this, and this. But if a player just goes, well, okay, and then doesn't do it, whereas if they're incentivized, you're more inclined to be switched on from a set piece because you think of how you're going to spend them bonuses, right?
Why not? You're getting incentivized to score a goal. Why shouldn't you get incentivized to stop one? Maybe.
But
I think it's very specific and nuanced incentives, though, isn't it? Like usually it's like goal bonus, clean sheet bonus, that sort of stuff, right? Win bonus, loss deficit, whatever. But like a very specific bonus structure. If you clear a header, if you do a defensive header from a set piece, then you get an extra 500 quid or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Listen, I guess it happens all the time. It depends on whether the juice. Here we go, play the bingo game. Whether the juice is worth the squeeze. If you're someone that's earning 100 grand a week at Tottenham, and you're going to get an extra 500 quid for every defensive header, or the absence of that being a part of your contract, are you not going to give a shit? I don't know. I'd fucking hope that's not the way that plays.
Not that I don't think you give a shit, but if you know you've got bonuses, you're more inclined to be switched on, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, 100%. I remember didn't in the World Cup? Yeah. Was it the World Cup with England in the World Cup? Was it in South Africa that Frank Lampard and was it Frank Lampard and Gerrard had like a bet between themselves around who would score the most goals, and so they ended up like taking massive punts from 25 yards and basically fucked it up for England because they had like 100 grand bet on who would score the most goals between the two of them. I'm sure that happened. I can't remember. Does that ring any bells? 21?
Not to me. I wouldn't have that deep dive into the England national team now.
Oh, fair enough. Johnny, do you remember that, mate?
No, not really. I don't think so.
So what are we saying then? Is Mohamed Kudos, is that a sign of intent though? Is Mohamed Kudos coming in? Is that a sign of intent? Is that like do we sit up and go, hello?
Sure, you know what's going to happen? Sure, you know what's going to happen. Typical Levy, right? We're linked with Semenya, we're linked with Mbuemo and Eze, and we buy this bloody Kudos.
Yeah,
I think Kudos is probably in around the right age profile. He's not, he's got experience in the Premier League. He's proved he can cut his cloth to a certain degree. He's 24. He's sort of entering his prime. I think right age profile is there as well.
Yeah, listen, I just know that there'll be people, I remember people that were always talking about Mohamed Kudos, and if we sign him and they end up going, we need Champions League experience. We don't need Premier League. We need Champions League experience. He hasn't got, and he's never played in Europe or whatever, all that shit. Then I'm gonna lose my mind, guys. Just so you know, there's 750 people here. I can't even bring up any comments right now. I can't type into my keyboard for some reason. I was going to bring up Football Inc. and Irish Hotspur's YouTube channels, so I could put them in the comment. But my keyboard is literally not working at all, and consequently, at the moment, unless it calms itself down, then I'm a little bit stuck. So forgive me for not bringing the comments up, and forgive me for not being able to plug the comments. But please do smash the like button. Please do get over to Football Inc. and to the Irish Hotspur. The second, I'm going to find a way if I can grab the link somehow and stick it in. Then it's the Levy board. Yeah, it's not the keyboard. It's it worked. Hey, we're back. Maybe we're back in the game. There you go. Everything's calmed down again. Forget what I said. Ignore me.
Hit the Football Link, guys. It's Sean and I's new channel. All things football. We'll be on tonight. If you like football and you can stand listening to us again, come and pop in tonight and hit that subscribe button. Yeah.
What's the topic?
Whatever the football is.
Whatever's going on in the world of football. We wax lyrical for an hour about all sorts. Here you go. Here's the link, guys, to Football Inc. Please make sure that you have tapped on the subscribe button. I'm going to get ourselves a little Davy boy Irish Hotspur as well. Guys, other stories out today. I do want to ask you guys about this guy, Rooney Bargie, that Tottenham have apparently held talks with the guy. But at the same time, this is one that, like, it was a £2 million bid from, or €2 million bid from AS Monaco. Guy's out of contract at the end of the summer. End of the winter, rather.
January.
Yeah, in January. But I think it's December 31st is out of contract, which means that if Copenhagen wait until January, or wait until then they'll lose him for free if he doesn't sign a new contract. So their last chance to sell him now is now. And Tottenham apparently are putting a cheeky £4 million, or thinking about organising a £4 or £5 million bid. Injury prone galore, did sort of rise to fame. Boys, what's your thoughts on Rooney Bargie before we move on to Callum Mwendo?
He's a top player. Unfortunately, had a few issues when he was playing in the Champions League for Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And he was dropped because of that behaviour. Then was brought back and got a very nasty injury. And it's taken him a long while to come back. Came back, started to play a couple of games. And as usual, when the long injury out, he pulled a muscle. He's now, how can I put it, out of contract. He won't have trouble finding a club. He won't be going for big money. He still must be 19, 20, I think, now. He's with CAA, I believe.
He was on. Didn't Spurs have him over before training with him when he was like 13, 14 years of age? I think there's been long outstanding interest in him.
Spurs have been watching him. Spurs have been watching him, but I think that injury, he needs to go and prove himself.
It was an ACL, wasn't it? He done his ACL. He was out for 9 to 12 months, similar to Radu Dragusin.
Yeah. So, you know, if he wants to come on a couple of million and we'll stick him in the...
you just get it done for like 4 million quid?
Bring him in, loan him out.
Nursery.
Bring him in, loan him out.
Yeah, bring him in, loan him out. Exactly, 100%, right? It's a no-brainer, right? For sure.
Look, I agree with Johnny. I think there's huge talent there, but the injuries and, you know, I think he was unhappy about not playing some of the games. You know, I think he voiced these concerns, you know, which ended up to him being dropped. But he's been very highly rated for quite some time. And I know Spurs have been interested in this guy since he's an early teenager. You know, there's been long outstanding interest there and stuff. For me, if there's a lot of money in the pool this summer, what's 5 million? Bring him in, loan him out, and if it doesn't work out, you'll sell him anyway. But if there's limited resources this summer, then don't touch him.
I think so. So if we can get him cheap, then fine.
Just quickly, guys, Steve Jones asking, what's the name of the Spotify channel? It is actually Spurs Talk Show. I don't know why it's not popping up, but there is the link right there, mate. Three comments down. So if you guys want to watch this on Spotify and other podcasts,
or listen to it,
exactly, then it's a little bit easier sometimes. If you're out and about, you can put the Spotify up and it plays in the background. YouTube doesn't give you that.
Same with Football Link is also on the Spotify app.
100%. Callum Owendo links are hotting up for this one, Johnny boy. It's not something that should just like tarting around the background of the aggregators. Callum Owendo, no one heard of him a couple of days ago, or most people hadn't. Now everyone's like sort of claiming that they're experts on the guy, referencing him to be the next Jermaine Defoe. What's your take on the guy?
He's 5'9". He wasn't doing great. His manager had to pull him aside and had a word with him, as we discussed the other night. And he pulled his socks up and he started performing. One swallow doesn't make a summer. If he's available for a reasonable fee from Rennes, then I'm open to it. That is not a landmark, a wow signing. Okay, yes, he came out the PSG academy, but yes, he had very stiff competition. That's why he had to go. The thing is, we see he's talking to various clubs. I see you say he's talking to Newcastle, but Newcastle have that fantastic under-21 Danish kid, Osos. I can't remember his name. He's a 21-year-old. Maybe someone can do it in the chat. He's a 21-year-old Danish international under-21s that's really ripping it up there at the moment. So I don't think, for me, he's the type of player I'm looking for personally.
It's like we're trying to sign
Richard Rios, mate. If you're going for me, Richard Rios, right? He's an absolute athlete, mate, right? And he covers so much ground. And for me, if we're going for a monster and we're not going to get a Douglas Luiz or a Yao Gomez, for me, this is a guy that could be a step up for both of them.
Yeah, don't mind that.
Yeah, look, for me, when it comes to this guy, Callum Owendo, to be honest with you, never heard of him. Ask Jack about him. Jack says he's sort of seen bits and pieces of him, but he wouldn't make that move. Look, for me, I think it's, and I'm not having a pop at anyone here, but Gift Orban was the great shining light 2 seasons ago, and I think this is another similar name. And again, if you want to win a Premier League and Champions League, is that the sort of name that tells people we're on our way? We're on our way. No, it doesn't. So for me, I'm not sure about Callum Owendo at all, to be honest with you. It's like we're trying to predict what France's future front line is going to be, and we're trying to buy it.
Yeah. This is a problem, right? This is like harking back full 360 on the weave here. If Daniel Levy is going to come out with the statements like that, saying this is the intention, we have to win, failure is not an option, we have to win the Premier League, we want to win the Champions League, and then within 24, 48 hours, either side of that being dropped, the links are not stepping up for a Semenyo. We're not being linked with any of these strikers out there, of which there are about 10 monster strikers that are all better than what we currently have that are being linked with teams that we can compete with, and then we're being linked with Callum Owendo. You know, Richard Rios, fair enough, right? A little bit of a different type of player, different conversation. But I mean, Callum Owendo is obviously a bit of a versatile player, and look, he might be a good player. I mean, I don't know. I don't watch Ren enough to be able to know with any kind of level of certainty. But what are we doing here? Chelsea are linked with. This is Chelsea. I know they have like unbelievable ability to spend money that they shouldn't be able to do, but they can. But Manchester United are going after Gyökeres. Like, Manchester United, we just beat Man United 4 times last year and lifted the cup. They finished 16th, and they can sign Gyökeres. They can sign, Mbumo. They can obviously, don't get me wrong.
And they're after Richard Rios, and they're after Rios as well. So where's the money coming from?
But in Tottenham's coffers, it's one thing to have the money. It's another thing to have the ambition.
Correct.
And where are these links? If Daniel Levy's saying we're here to do things differently, we're going to win the league, and Vinny's saying, look, from now on, Daniel Levy's taking the backward step, and I'm taking charge of the football, the day-to-day football stuff. Cool. Then maybe that will mean that he won't be quite as how do you call it? Like Pennywise and Pennywise is easy way to say it, right? But and pound foolish. How come it is that you've got Jonathan David out there that's currently not able to secure a deal, but we're not going for him at all? Newcastle United looking for him. Instant improvement. Dusan Vlahovic. I mean, some people, I don't think he would suit Tottenham under Thomas Frank, but he's not. He's still an improvement on what we have. Gyökeres, Sesko, Ekitike.
We've already missed out on Delap.
Liam Delap went for 25 million quid.
He was always going to Chelsea though, because he's mates with what's his name, Reece James.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there's players dotted around Europe. There's players that are, that are surely better than what we have, that aren't going to break the balance, and yet we hear the kind of statements of intent. Yet they're like the next day, the day before, the day after. We're linked with a bunch of nobodies, a bunch of unknowns, which is fine. If you want to go, like someone said it earlier, right? Bring me in a monster, a 6, and a monster in the forward line, and then a couple of people that we don't know about. Fair enough. I'm okay with all that shit. I'm okay, but I at least want to get I want to sort of dip my beak here. I want to get my beak wet a little bit in some sort of tantalizing transfer news, and there really isn't much going around, Dave, is there?
No, there's not. It's all smoke and mirrors, but. How much of it are they waiting for Paratici's ban to be up, at the end of this month before he comes in, so that he's the one actually in the room conducting the deals and stuff like that? How much of a part does that play in us not acting in the window? The fact that we're still waiting to actually get official confirmation about the investment. Maybe there's a reason why, maybe we're waiting to announce all that before we go big or whatever. But for me, I just think there's a missed opportunity. Even before, as soon as you announce there's investment, you go to any club, they're going to put an extra 10, 15 million on a player. For me, 100%. You start negotiating now. You start getting your deals done now. And then when the money comes in, boss, there you are. Shut up. Take what we paid you. We you know what I mean? But for me, I just... This is my problem. I've been, and you know me, Sean, you always say to me, Dave, you've got to be more active in the summer transfer window. But I always say to you, I fucking hate it. All the rumors, I get excited, and then we end up signing guys that everyone has to do research on and stuff like that. It ultimately becomes a massive letdown 9 times out of 10. And all the rumors, you only ever really sign 1% or 2% of all the rumors that are put out there. It drives me absolutely insane. But if we're going to go after a Premier League and a Champions League, the Daniel Levy needs to realize he has to break the wage structure at the club. He has to break the barrier of what he's willing to pay per player. My whole thing and my whole belief over the last few years, especially with Jose and Conte, he said he wanted to try a different approach, but he never actually truly committed to it. And the reason why is he doesn't want to get into another situation like he did when he was offering the likes of players from the Poch era, contracts after contracts after contracts, even beyond Pochettino, to the point where he's stuck, where he's got a load of players on high wages, that have very little resale value if it doesn't work out. He doesn't want to get stuck in that situation again. Steve Hitchen brought around that situation with some of the wages he was carelessly offering out and stuff like that. But in order to go and win a Premier League and a Champions League, Daniel Levy has to recognize he has to go and do that now. You have to go and commit funds, but there's clever ways you can do it. For me, go and attack. Go after the 24, 25, 26-year age profile, players that have proven that they can play at a certain level. that are about to hit their prime and improve. That way, you're going to get more success and more hit rate rather than, getting stuck wasting money like we've done in years gone by. But in all honesty, I see the likes of the Eze rumors and everything else, and I'm just waiting for a more Calamuendo to be announced. And there you are. And then that puts, all them rumors then, to rest and stuff like that. It's my huge concern. And that's what I was saying earlier on, that Daniel Levy says one thing, but so far the actions on the build up to that don't exactly match it. Now, look, of course, Daniel Levy doesn't have control over all the transfer rumors that people are printing and shit like that. But like I said, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait and see what's actually signed on the dotted line before I judge. I'm not going to judge the window now. I'll judge it when it's done. But for me, Daniel Levy has to be willing to do stuff that notoriously has been not willing to do at Tottenham Hotspur in order to make these big name signings happen. These signings that are going to whet the appetite. And at the end of the day, if he does, right, think about this. We're off the back of the Europa League trophy. That club shop, ever since we won that, has been absolutely inundated with fans going in buying merch. 100%. You bring in a marquee signing, you're going to sell a lot more season tickets. You're going to sell them out quicker. You're going to get a lot more demand to go to games, which means, and I know fans aren't going to like this, but you got the demand there. You can up your ticket prices and absolutely everything else. And I think that's one thing that Daniel Levy maybe doesn't understand. If you do,
well, maybe he does. Maybe he does, Dave. Because if he's going, no, I'm just thinking. I'm wondering, if Son is going, he understands, along with Vinny, they need a marquee signing. I mean, you're never going to replace Son. Well, Calamendo is not going to be the guy that you bring in, right, to replace shirt sales, right? Okay, Eze might globally, he might be one that really triggers shirt sales. Who knows? But I think maybe they have one eye on that. Someone global.
I'm just looking through the list of like the forwards there by transfer value. Let me get rid of that thing up before I get demonetized. And there really isn't huge amounts of strikers out there that I can see us going after are going to move the needle that are available, apart from the names that we always talk about. But those names seem to be frequented and sort of surrounded by the bigger clubs. But there's still too many bigger clubs. There's too many strikers that are looking for a move, and there are bigger clubs that need to facilitate.
That's how you sell Tottenham, though, Sean. Like, we can compete with them clubs if we sell them the right project. We make the right noise around it. We managed to do it to Berghvall. Now, I know Berghvall's at an age where he's younger and stuff like that, but we managed to do it to Berghvall, steal him from under Barcelona's noses. You sell them the right pathway and the right, what you want to do with them and how you see them scoring goals in your system. They will sign on a dotted line.
Would you take this guy? Is it on the screen?
By the looks of what Maresca said, it looks like they're keeping both of them next season, and he wants that competition. He thinks that the lap would bring more out of Nicholas Jackson. And
they're also trying to sign Nkunku, right?
Yeah, what about Nkunku?
Yeah, I don't want Nkunku personally. I think he's another fucking nightmare injury list player.
So here's the interesting thing: when he came from RB Leipzig, before he got that terrible injury, everyone wanted him. 100%. He was the hottest striker in the business. Now, Chelsea are disposing players like tissues. So, sometimes you just hang on to one, grab one of the tissues, and maybe it's something worth holding on to. I think.
Would you be excited about how would the fan base react if Tottenham made a bid for Christoph Nkunku?
I think I'd take him on loan. I think
there's a brilliant player in there. It's just
So do I. Yeah.
Sometimes it is a case where a player makes a move and for whatever reason it doesn't work out at a club. But when they move on again, they can sort of just really kick on again. It doesn't mean they're tainted goods. Sometimes,
100%.
for whatever reason, it's just not the right environment, the right move. I think where you got to weigh that up is the talent there and are they still hungry? If they're still hungry, then, I would take them. If they still feel like they got a point to prove. Where you don't sign a player like that is if you get them in the door and they're just trying to maximize their wages and everything else. They don't really, it's not really about the football and you don't see that hunger there. That's where you stay away from them sort of signings. But if they're hungry, I'd snap them up all day long.
So let me ask you this, guys, right? So I want to ask you about the goalkeeper situation because I'm just a little bit bemused. I know we spoke about it yesterday on your show, Dave. But like this, I want to get your both your takes here on Vicario. Because I've seen a lot of people. I think there's a little bit of a consensus here from Twitter, from the various channels I've watched on Vicario, and it's like everyone's a little bit surprised that the story has emerged. That no one would be that bothered if he left.
Yeah.
But that everyone's a little bit like, are we just adding an extra fucking thing to figure out in a long list of things we need to figure out?
I think this summer we are. I think it's one where you go, we're watching it, but it's not immediate, right? You do need that other left-sided defender that can either adapt as a centre-back or a full-back. You need that guy. You need that number 6. You need a winger, and you need another player in that forward line. You know, you need them. If you're serious about competing, you plug them gaps. I think doing a goalkeeper, it's one of them. If you're going to do it, you got to do it now and get that keeper in before preseason starts. You can't get away with selling him, you know, as the season starts and bringing in another guy. Look at Kinsky and how he adapted when we just threw him straight in. It's a very hard thing to do. And if you don't get it right, having a shit goalkeeper, it doesn't matter who you've got in front of it, it's going to cost you points on the board. So, look, with Vicario, and to be honest with you, I said this yesterday, if Micky van der Ven didn't save his bacon in that Europa League final, then conversations around his future would have started the next day. People questioning whether he was good enough, especially off the back of the season he's just had. You know, because you think last season, yeah, there was aerial weakness. The season before that, yeah, he was susceptible from set pieces. But you're thinking going into a new season, maybe that's just him acclimatizing to the Premier League. He'll work on it. They'll sort it out. And it didn't quite manifest that way. And then he was also poorer last season than the season before with the ball at his foot and stuff. Now, I wonder how much of that is down to the broken ankle and just trying to get the feel of it again. But for me, it's watch it and we'll address it next season if it continues to become an injury or continues to become a problem. But I think right now we've got more than enough goalkeepers around the place to get through to next season. But we've got other areas outfield that will dictate more points on the board or losses and dictate Frank's future that we have to address first. But Vicario, he is treading the fine line. Look, I like Vicario. I think he's one of the world's best shot stoppers. But there's weaknesses to his game, set pieces. Frank won't tolerate that. Frank was solid from set pieces. It's bread and butter. You know what I mean? So if he doesn't improve in that aspect, I think it will be one that Frank will look at.
Do you think Thomas Frank, just quickly, Dave, and I'll bring Johnny in. Do you think that Thomas Frank might look at things like the set piece vulnerabilities on the training ground and look, I mean, it's pick your poison because Kinsky's fucking vulnerable from shot stopping. Yeah. But he is much better from crosses. There's like, it's almost like if you could merge the talents of the two, you'd have a top draw keeper, you know?
It's the same with Tottenham across every position, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I remember when we had Emerson Royal and Pedro Porro, you know? Yeah. Emerson Porral or whatever. Pedro Porral, we would have we've had the world's best right back, wasn't to be. Do you think that there's a chance that Kinsky might get the nod?
Look, I think it's open. You know, Kinsky's a better distributor with the ball at his feet. He's better from set pieces. And at the end of the day, the shot stopping is something that he can improve on. You know, he's only 22. That is something that he's going to be working on day in, day out. And that's something you can improve. With Vicario, I'm almost of the opinion, how much can you really improve being commanding in terms of your box? You know, that's a lot of that is to do with confidence, but also the size. And he's a very slight frame for a goalkeeper. So for me, look, I think it opens the door. That's the great thing about a new manager coming in. I'd argue it opens the door for Radu Dragosin or Danzo. Romero and Van der Ven are not known for being aerially dominant, which means for the first time in a couple of years, that partnership is under threat. There's an opportunity for Danzo or Radu Dragosin, if they can be aerially dominant, to walk themselves into that centre-back position. So there's a chance for Kinsky. But I just think with Vicario's influence overall on the squad, I think he'll keep with Vicario as number one.
I think 2 years and absolutely no improvement on his aerial, defending corners, coming for the ball. His distribution with his feet has not improved. And we saw the sublime and the ridiculous in that final. We saw him come out and completely miss a ball in the air. That led to that unbelievable acrobatic save from Micky van der Ven. And then just at the end, we saw the sublime, that fantastic save to turn away that late effort. For me, you know, when I see him,
two moments there though sum up Vicario's time at Tottenham, though, Johnny, right?
Yeah. But you listen. When I look at Mark Flecken, Sean and I have spoken about this before. I've always really liked Mark Flecken. He's very solid, right? If you play fantasy football, and I'll tell you, they might lose Brentford, but Mark Flecken always gets you extra points because the amount of saves he makes, right? And I just think that he will look. So what Thomas Frank does when he looks at every club, every team, he looks at their weaknesses and how to exploit them. And it's no coincidence. It didn't work, but there's no coincidence when we played them away earlier in the season, the away game, we put in 35 crosses into the box, okay? It didn't work this time, but I think that when he looks at the goalkeeper, straight away, he's going to say to Rob Birch, look, you know, I've been watching this guy for 2 years now. He still is not good enough coming for crosses. And if you want to keep your place in my team, you're going to have to be better at set pieces. You're going to have to be better at ball distribution. Otherwise, I'm going to have to look to replace you. I don't want to see him running after 18-year-old Archie Gray and screaming at him when actually it was his fault that led to the mistake. And he did that quite a lot last year, going a bit mental at kids. And I think sometimes you need to put your arm around them rather than go, lose your shit, especially if you're part of the leadership group. But listen, we'll see soon enough, right?
I can't fucking wait, mate. I cannot wait to get just to start seeing some preseason training, to start seeing some footage, just to I can't wait. What we got, a month until the preseason starts. Get a couple of players in. I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. I love the transfer news, views and clues section of the summer. I love it. I love it when there's also a World Cup or something to sort of, dip your toe into. The Club World Cup's been fucking shit so far. Absolutely disastrous, in my opinion. No good games, no good crowds. It's an embarrassing tournament. But just when we tip into July, and it's then you start to get the footage of the players back again, and you start to tinker with the formations in your head. Everything starts to become real, and then we get into August, and then we're back, baby, and then we're traveling around the country. We're going to Tottenham. Fan cams are back, and the summer sun is sensational, Dave, isn't it?
Look, that's what I always wait for. I always sort of dread this. But it's weird because when the season ends, because usually since Pochettino, it's been so stressful. I can't wait to get a breakaway. But then after 2 weeks, I'm almost getting itchy feet. I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself on the weekends. Don't really know what to do with myself midweek, in the evenings and stuff like that. I'm flicking through the channels, praying there's some sort of sport on. Because, some of the shit on TV. And you really forget how much football actually gives you for, over the course of the year. And for me, I just can't wait to get stuck back into it. I can't wait to see if there's a player for instance, with Kulu under Conte was a right winger. Postecoglou turned into a player that can move through the middle. I wonder, is Frank looking at any players that he sees playing in maybe a slight different position? How Frank's going to set up? Is he going to play an attacking brand of football? I can't wait for all of that. But the big thing is, whatever the marquee signings are for Frank, every manager has them where they have one or two positions, says this is non-negotiable. I need this in this position to make the rest of whatever else. These are the two most important positions. I can make the rest fit in and around it. You got to get them in before preseason. The other ones, the periphery ones, the one or two periphery ones that they're making them,
plays,
you can make them as towards the end of the window. The marquee ones, you got to get in preseason, let their coaches work with them, get them up to speed, and let them go. Because a large part of some of our problems this year across that back line as well. Romero, no preseason. Udogie, no preseason. And it affected their performances throughout the campaign. Preseason is so important. If anyone thinks I'm talking shit, go and listen to Danny Drinkwater, I think it was, with Rio Ferdinand. He says, Rio Ferdinand basically asked him, why the drop off when you went to Chelsea? He says, look, I was injured. I couldn't do preseason, and I'm trying to get up to speed during the season and everything else. It's different to, back in the day when I first started playing. They're so fit nowadays and everything else. I struggle without having preseasons. So it's fucking important that they get the bulk of the work done before preseason kicks off. You do that, Your jerseys are going to sell out quicker. Your ticket sales are going to sell out quicker. Everything has. And no one will give a shit what concerts you bring. So get the bulk of the work done. Make the marquee signings and let's fucking go.
100%. Johnny, before I bring you in, mate, got a super chat here. And I want to also, guys, there's only 282 likes. There's been 800 people here, give or take. Just under 800 people here for the live show. We should, your like game is usually so incredibly strong that I don't have to ask too many times. But today it's all been a little bit slow.
It's like a Daniel Levy like game, isn't it?
Daniel Levy just said he wants to win a Premier League and Champions League. The likes should be through the roof.
100%. I don't know if it's a problem with the stream because there's lots of problems with my computer, but just smash the granny out of it. Cracking show, gent, says Voxaholic. Thank you very much for the super chat, mate. These three amigos, random fact, myself and my dad once met, is that Andoni Zubizarreta? The goalkeeper, right? He's like 60 years old now. Is that the guy that was like the longest serving Spanish goalkeeper in like the 80s? I'm pretty sure. I'm sure that's Zubizarreta. If it is, that's a fucking classy little. How did you recognize him? He's 62-year-old goalkeeper.
When you're talking about he's still walking around in his football shirt with Zubizarreta on the back. How did you recognise me?
Yeah,
he was in there buying some salami in his local supermarket.
People are just saying Frank's interview has just dropped.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Can we get it up? Should we have a look at it? Should we have a quick look at it?
Yeah, let's look at it.
Okay, it must be on. Hang on.
Won't let me sign into Twitter for some reason.
Spurs official.
Let's watch it.
Here we go.
Let's get it up.
All right.
Okay. Oh, I'm
excited.
Thank you very much.
New head coach is extraordinary. Really looking forward to this massive challenge together with a lot of good people. I only heard good stuff about all the people here, the training ground, the players, good squad, exciting, massive club. I think massive potential. So just super excited. I think as probably every boy or girl, I just love to play football when I was running around in my hometown. Probably pretty soon found out that I was never going to be a professional football player. So now I just started early coaching when I was 20 years old, and then I've been coaching for 30 plus years. First grassroots level, academy football. Went into my first senior head coach job at Brøndby. It's a massive club in Denmark. Went to England on a journey, first as assistant manager and then the head coach, and had an unbelievable journey in Brentford. A fantastic time with fantastic staff, players and fans. They've done a very, very good process. I would say Daniel Levy and Vinay and Johan Lange have had very good conversations and meetings with them where we discussed everything in depth, details about the club structure, processes. And of course, I came with my view on things and how I saw it and my ideas and the way I want to do things and how I try to build a team and a club. And of course, it's not me. I think it's very important to say, yes, the head coach is an important person, but if I don't have good people around me, it's impossible. You can't do anything alone, in my opinion. If you want to do something quick, you can go alone. If you want to do something big or achieve something big, you go together. So it's definitely a thing about doing things together, me, staff, players. I think the alignment is key from top to bottom. And of course, it starts from Daniel and Vinay and Johan. And me, and the more the four of us can be aligned, just like a unit and like an unbreakable unit.
Just quickly there, didn't mention a certain Don.
No, it didn't.
No.
Do you think he's going to say fantastic? How many more times is he going to say fantastic? Which is fantastic, but
listen, what I want to hear him saying is it's all about the goose. Is it worth the squeeze? And if what's good for the goose is good for the gander, is what I need to hear him say.
Yeah.
What I will say is maybe he can't mention Don Paratici because technically he's not supposed to be in any of these meetings and everything else. So maybe if he does,
he mentioned Daniel.
Oh, brilliant. Let's find Tottenham. We've been waiting for an excuse. Do you know what I mean?
Has he mentioned Daniel?
Yeah, 7 times.
Yeah. Just quickly though,
I thought he mentioned Vinay.
No, he's mentioned. He said. You know, what's important is it starts at the top with Daniel.
Sorry, because I have this thing where when I hear his name, it sometimes doesn't register.
What I do like about him is he's not coming in here pretending to be the professor or the oracle. He is saying to people, the processes around me need to be correct. The right things have to be implemented, and I like that from him. He's not coming here going, I'm the guy. I'm the professor. It doesn't matter what.
Yeah, there's no ego.
Make this work.
He's no ego with him. It sounds very much
for me. The best bit for me.
It's all about him, is it? It's about us. I like that.
The best bit for me was, you know, I can go alone. Yeah, I can go alone, but I'll go nowhere. You know, it's about everyone going together.
Yeah,
love that.
Let's hear the rest. Let's hear the rest.
Yeah, let's hear the rest.
I'm just getting hard.
The stronger we will be, and there'll be ups and downs. I think it's right now it's a fairy tale. Everyone is happy. The sun is shining. It's fantastic, but we haven't played one game yet. Hopefully, we'll win a lot. We'll work very hard every single day to make sure we create as many magic moments for the fans and put them together. And hopefully, in the end of the season, it will be a very good season. But the alignment in terms of structure, processes, transfers, squad, playing style, culture, all that is key. I think in terms of my style of play, I'll explain it a little bit now, but I rather wanna, how can you say, show it. You can talk a lot, but I think it's more what we show, what we try to do.
I like that.
In few
Daniel
words,
Levy, are you listening?
The intention is to play aggressive, front-footed football. And I know the ethos and the history of the club is massive on attacking football, and I think there's so much attacking talent in the squad. I'm very excited about that. They've clearly shown over the last 2 seasons that the ability to score goals is fantastic, and I'm very, very in on that. I love a team that is scoring goals. Very, very big on principles. What we do on the final third in terms of creating chances, you know, crosses, bring balls in the box, play behind and stuff like that. I think it's key. So just want to build on that attacking football we already have here in the club. I'm a big believer. I always say this one-liner: if you don't take risk, you also take risk. So I think it's important that we take risk. And risk is, for example, if we play man-man in some situations, risk is you need to play forward. If you don't risk the ball, you can't create anything. So I'm a big believer of that. We need to be brave. The players need to be brave when we play, and they need to trust themselves. So I will do my very best to install that trust, and the players need to be brave. For me, if they lose the ball by trying, it's never a problem for me. Of course, I can react, it's natural, but they need to do that. But if they don't work hard, I
similar times.
So if they do everything they can and they lose the ball or they try, no problem. But it's more if they don't work hard, that's my non-negotiable. But we need to take risk. Of course, if we don't take risk, it's impossible to achieve something big.
Just quickly, sorry to pause, but
I
need to break it up every now and again because otherwise I might get dinged with a copyright unless I turn it into an analysis. He did say if you don't try, that's a big problem for him. Yeah. Brennan Johnson, you better be warned.
I told you, Shorty, he will not tolerate back post Johnson. It's about 90 minutes of effort. And he says numerous times, I will tell you, because what he says is, I see with my eye, if someone I think is not performing either in training or in the game, I then ask my data guys to come back to me with the physical data from the tracking app. He said, and then what I do is I get them in the room and I get my guy to come in with the clip videos and show them the videos with the data, and I tell them shape up or else. And that for me is brilliant.
He's got powerful eyes as well. That color yellow is quite
a weird color. Yeah, that's concerning. But one thing he hasn't mentioned is his love of red wine. He's been talking about alignment, but hasn't mentioned he loved red wine yet. So that's concerning. But no, in seriousness, though, what I would just something on that little brief there. What I like about it is, and where I think I'm actually really starting to get an erection. So I'm gonna have to end this shortly, but. what I like about it is, and I think this is where the squad are actually going to embrace it maybe more than maybe if they had reservations, is he said, I want them to take risks on the ball. If you don't, that's where the problem comes in. You got to take risks. That's something that Ange Postecoglou tried to implement with the players. So they're not going to have to change in that regard. So if he can just bring the defensive structure around it, with that risk-taking football, it's going to be fucking exciting.
100%. I've been a massive fan for this guy for a long time. You know, I had a friend ring me today, actually, and he said, you know, I know you're chomping at the bit. He said, you've been banging on about him for long enough. I said, well, I'll be honest with you. I never, ever thought I'd see him at Spurs. I never did. I honestly never did. I thought we wouldn't even look at him. You know, for me, fantastic stuff. And this is exactly what I heard watching Brentford is I'm hearing this. This is sort of like an upgrade.
Yeah, it just feels like we're going to be more polished, more disciplined, more organised, more prepared. I feel like we can go to bed at night knowing that whoever we're playing tomorrow and whoever we've got midweek, that they will have allocated the correct amount of time on the training ground to figure out, you know, how to approach it and get that kind of SWOT analysis figured out, which isn't something that I could say about the predecessor. And for what it's worth, the good things about Ange seems like, as you say, Dave, that they are a little bit represented here in the same kind of tone. So we'll carry on listening to it. But Mark Woodland, just quickly, thank you very much, my man. Dude, you look a lot like Garrett. I don't know if you watch online poker, but you're a spitting image for the guy Garrett from one of the best live players.
He also followed up Shawnee saying he loves the content as well.
Oh, did you? Oh, thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
Is that you, Sean? You look like Garrett.
I don't look like Garrett. No. He looks like Garrett. Mark looks like a lot like Garrett, my favourite poker player. He's absolutely legendary. Right. Okay. Anyway, appreciate you, mate, for joining us. Let's carry on.
Can I just say? I'm just going to say that. Look, guys, I know I see the few comments here, and they're going to come in here. He's just a Levy mouthpiece. What do you want him to come in and say? Right? Well, listen. What do you want him to come and say?
That's the same under every
manager. More frank. So, excuse my pun there, it wasn't intended. He's being more frank. He's got more depth. He's not talking philosophy like Ange did. He's actually talking tactics. He's talking more in-depth tactics than Ange is. Ange talked about his philosophy, you know, what his mindset was. This guy's actually telling you how he wants to set up, what he wants to do, how he wants to build on it, what he'll accept, what he won't accept tactically. That's more than we normally see.
It was the same. People said the same under Ange Postecoglou. Yes, man. If you want to keep your job, there's an element that you have to work with your bosses. You're not going into your job that you earn your weekly wage out of and telling your boss he's doing everything wrong and this and that and everything else.
100%.
You don't care. You're just going to do whatever you're asked to do. Yeah. You know, there's an element of that under every manager that wants to keep their job. This whole yes man is a load.
I can completely agree, and that's why I feel so strongly about Christian Romero speaking the way he does about the club that pays his wages. Know what side your bread is buttered. You might think you're better than everybody else. You might think you're better than the club, and maybe you are. But ultimately, where are these offers for you, bro? Where are they? They're not. There's not. I can't see any. So, like, don't forget, you know, who pays your salary. And to be honest, it's not Daniel Levy, is it? It's us. And before I just quickly continue, I think it's the Glevers family or the Glevers family. I don't know how you say your
family
name. What's that?
You got a whole family there, not just
a whole family, mate. Listen, I really appreciate this. I can't see the super sticker, mate, unfortunately. I can't see it on StreamYard, but thank you very much for the super chat. Really, really appreciate it. And let's carry on and see what else is this Lord Sith with his eyes has got to say.
Squad. I think it's a very good squad. Very excited about starting working with them. And of course, you know, when you follow Premier League, you see the other teams. Of course, I've seen Tottenham. I've seen some fantastic performances from the team over the last years, and I'm very excited about that. So I think there's big potential in it. But of course, I'm looking for the outside. So I'm looking forward to get to know them, you know, to be around them, to feel them, to understand them, to work with them on a training pitch, and that's where you really get the big understanding and understand the relationships between players and how you can get the best out of them. Of course, I got an idea already. You know, my head is spinning. How can we play? How can we put them together and all that?
Right.
But yeah, looking forward to that. When I say talented, it's also it's not only the young players. It's also some of the more experienced players. How can we get the best out of them? Let's say Dominic Solanke. I'm a big fan of him in terms of his abilities. I'm sure we'll make him score a lot of goals. How can we play? Bentancur, Maddison. How can we get that? But of course, the younger ones as well. I think it's all players that we need to develop and make perform on the highest level. But of course, Berghvall, Archie Gray, Udogie, all of them, I think have a high ceiling. There's others I haven't mentioned. I mentioned the whole squad, and I'm looking forward to it. It's always about winning.
Looking for car hire that's head and shoulders above the rest, Heather.
Yeah.
Can I just say, the one thing I don't know if you saw this particular clip. He talks about relationships. He mentioned it here. Relationships between players. So, for example, he likes to work the relationships between, say, for example, the right back and the right winger. Yeah. Right? You're not understanding. He shows tactic balls. He was telling us about Kevin Sade. And was it Chardin and Buemo, or it was two players anyway, and he was showing both the players, look, you're not understanding your positions. You guys are intrinsically linked, and until you start to understand the runs that your players are making, you're not going to be getting the best out of each other. Right.
Well, it's just not just going back to basics. It was always football is always about relationships.
Yeah. So what he was doing, he was showing them, like, look, so this is where you are, this is where you should be, this is where you should have been. And he said, and in the next game, this is what happened. And he showed them getting into that right position because they had been working on it and understanding. And, it seems so simple when you say it.
Yeah, but the difference is, Johnny, right, is that the last guy, Ange, he had this structural kind of like non-negotiables around the way that we played football, at least under Ange Ball, the initial version of it. And he also said, like, the specifics are over to you, right? I'm going to hand it over to you guys to figure out, but I encourage you to take risks, all the things. But in so doing, if you're just giving someone, a team of people, structural kind of non-negotiables, but saying how that looks, you figure it out amongst yourselves. This is one of the things I had a problem with Ange Ball from the get-go, is that you're asking a hell of a lot of players who haven't had that much time playing together, that are all young, wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
To then not only be thinking about what is it that I should be doing here, but what is it that they're going to be doing? And if they think outside the box and do something a little bit unorthodox, then how do I react to that? It's an overload of unique, like, creative options that you end up seeing people like, Christian Romero just taking it upon himself to become a striker in the last 10 minutes of games and random shit like that. Whereas this guy seems like, no. It's the relationships are still sort of, they're conventional, but you have to be within that kind of framework. It's a little bit more tailored, isn't it?
That's where the club got Ange Postecoglou wrong. When they brought in Ange Postecoglou initially, and the general consensus from the Spurs fan base was, he's a rebuild guy. And I was one of the only ones that sat out there and said, he's not a rebuild guy. He's like your Josie, he's like your Conte. He needs ready-made players. And that's why, that's why he thinks his philosophy works. Because if you've got players that understand the game at a certain age and have a certain experience, they understand the value in relationships with players on the pitch between your right back, your right winger, your centre-back partnerships and stuff like that. And so Andrew's basically employing a philosophy for your ready-made players with a squad that needed development. Whereas with Thomas Frank, it sounds great, but a lot of it's just basics. And that's what we've been lacking at Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, exactly. We're all getting excited because we're learning the 2 times table again.
But you know what it is though, Sean? It's the basics while keeping the philosophy of, I want you to take risks, something that Ange drilled into the players. So he's not saying to them, now all of a sudden, I don't want you to take risks. He's sort of embodying that while putting the structure and the basics in place around it, and also developing the players by going, it's not all about you. You have to have an understanding. Like large parts last season, Johnson and Porro had no understanding. How many goals did it cost us down that side? You get an understanding
all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. You get.
I kind of feel like if you can embed that philosophy, it feels like we're going to be difficult to beat and hard to stop. Because if you're difficult to beat on the fundamentals, but you're hard to stop on the fact that you do have that creative freedom and that wiggle room to be a little bit inventive, then with the talent that we've got, we should be able to accelerate up the.
Let me tell you something, right? Honestly, this is why. I mean, listen, I know a lot about Frank because I've had to listen to it over a number of years. But for me, when I look at Ange Postecoglou, and I don't want to keep going back and slagging off, but the one thing that I never, ever understood is how, as of a manager who doesn't take training, who sits in his office and lets other people take the training, understand his philosophy. He has no allegiance to any of his trainers. He gets 2 guys in from Hibs that he's never met before, that he doesn't know, right? They get sacked from Hibernian. He gives them the job, and they are the ones training. Davies was a top coach, right? He left. He went up to Birmingham. We all saw what happened, right? There was a massive drop-off. These guys have never worked with Ange. What you've got now is not only a coach that isn't sat in his office, he's hands-on. All his staff that he's bought have worked with him.
Yeah.
For a considerable
that
time.
Cochrane guy seems like he's like the actual cherry on top of a wonderful model.
Listen, when Thomas Tuchel calls you of all the coaches he could have, and you've been highlighted to come and work with the England setup, right? It says it all. And I for one, all I've wanted is an old-fashioned hands-on coach. I look at Glasner. I look at what he's done with Mateta, who couldn't hit a barn door, right? Ismail Sarr, whose career seemed to be going nowhere. I could go on and on. He's gone in there, hands-on, like Thomas Frank, hands-on coach, and he's changed them. And that's what we need to see. We need to see player development, not just team development. We need to see individual developments. So when we come into the season, right, and we see, look, we all saw what Berghvall did. We all saw the progression. If we start to see the progression in other players, then we will forsake and we will allow the defeats, because we can see, okay, we got beat, but I can see what he's trying to do. I can see so-and-so and so-and-so are definitely better than they were before. I think we can allow that progression.
Can I just say, I don't want to paint the narrative, though, that this guy's going to be on the training pitch every week an hour, because I don't think it's going to be the case. And the reason why I say that is the reason why you bring a coaching team with you, especially to a big club, is so that you can trust them to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of on the training pitch and relay the right information to you. Also notice if players are down or whatever, or players training exceptionally well, get that information to manager. Because the reality is, at Brentford, he had 7 days between every game. He had that chance to be out there on the training pitch. At Tottenham Hotspur, you've got midweek games. You've got more media duties and everything else, which means there's going to be less time for him on the training pitch. Between the weekend and midweek game, you're probably going to get a day and a half max, because you've got to put recovery and everything else into the equation, which means he's not going to have as much time on the training pitch. The bulk of his work has to be done pre-season, August, heading into September. After that, that's where you then rely on that coaching team. And that's why you bring a coaching team with you and put them in place, because you have to be able to rely on them, that they're getting across what you want them to get across. And they're also relaying the right messages. He's not going to have that time he had at Brentford on the training pitch. So it is going to be where he's going to have to adapt. And I'm not saying abandon what he's done at Brentford, but streamline that process to match.
That's okay too. Like, you know, if you built this relationship with your team, and he's got like fucking 6 of them, you know, and fair play to Daniel Levy for putting out, you know, the compensation for all these guys, and obviously putting out the salary for these guys to give him what he needs, so that there's less of a learning curve for the coaches, as Johnny was saying, like that dissemination, that sort of Chinese whispers of information doesn't have to be treated that way. And if Thomas Frank has to be in the office doing certain things, then at least he knows that there's people on the training ground that know exactly what he wants and that can just disseminate correctly.
Exactly.
You know?
Not sat in the office like Ange was and leaving guys to it.
That's what I'm saying, though. Let's not portray that Frank is going to be on the training pitch all the time.
Frank's on the training pitch a lot, mate. He's an obsessive, right?
Either way, like I say, even if he's not there, his like shadows are, right. So we should be okay. Let's take a look at the last few minutes here. Let's see what else they're saying.
We need to make the team win. on a Saturday and a Tuesday, and then Saturday and then on a Wednesday. But it's also about develop the individual player, and that's me and my staff, and the player. So how we work together about that on a day-to-day basis. Because if we lift the players' performance or develop them, the team will grow, perform better, hopefully opportunities to win more matches. First and foremost, I think it's a fantastic fan base. I think the fans is the most important ones. It's the team, staff, me, all of us. How can we make sure we create enough magic moments with the fans? Make moments they remember. They can get hopefully excited about. It's about that, and also that we go on a journey together. And on a journey, there'll be ups and downs, and it's how we get through these ups and downs together. But of course, the connection from the team to the fans, from me to the fans, is going to be crucial. And a very important thing is to make our home Tottenham Hotspur's stadium like a fortress, and that can only be the fans and us, the team, together. So that needs to be an ongoing relationship, ongoing, how can you say, situation we need to build, because I want our home to be very, very difficult to come to, and that we can only do together. A huge congratulations to the club, to the team. Huge congratulations to Ange. So he forever be a legend in Tottenham, and congratulations to him for that. I think it's very important to understand that we all stand on the shoulders of others. So I'm going in on the foundation that Ange have built and his coaching staff, and I'm very humble about that. And I'll do my very best to continue the great work you've put in.
So humble, love it.
But the feeling and the excitement and the joy and the happiness you could see in the fans' face and the pictures you saw was wow. So hopefully we can create more of those moments. That will be the ultimate dream, to do that and build on that. And they, hey, no one can say they're not winners. The team and the players are winners. Now we need to do best if we can become serial winners in the future.
Oh, yeah, buddy. The last few minutes of that interview, the humility, the respect, and then also how we become serial winners, not just winners. Absolutely love that interview.
Oh, it's too late, mate. I made a mess. It was so good.
I was skeptical around the Frank appointment at first, and would we put the right processes in place? But, bringing in the coaching staff really sort of eased my concerns a little bit, because I do understand the value of bringing in your own team, not having to coach the coaches per se. And, I'm really excited by his interview there. And what really excites me is because one of my big concerns is he's not going to get away with playing Brentford ball, copying and pasting it and bringing it to Tottenham Hotspur. There's a certain expectation. A lot of the games we're expected to go and take the game to the opposition. But with that interview, he's alleviated my concerns. He wants to go and score goals. He mentioned about trying to play an attacking brand of football. So for me, I'm all in. I like what I hear. And now it's just over the club. Are you going to give them the right players to match the ambitions? Let's wait and see. But I really like what I hear.
I got chills. I got goosebumps, right? I got to be honest with you. I got goosebumps. I think that is the best manager interview, press thing that I've seen in a long, long time.
Let's not go overboard now, Johnny.
No, I'm being serious. Right? Because normally they gloss over bullshit, right? My thing. I'll tell you what he will do, what he did at Brentford, which I thought was unbelievable, to bring that sort of relationship with the fans and the players. Win, lose or draw, he used to, I'm interested to see whether he does it at Spurs, because it's a much bigger stadium. He made the players walk round the stadium after every game, not just go down to one end, walk round the entire stadium, and he walked with them, clapping all the fans after every single game.
It's one thing getting them to do it when you're winning games. I mean, everyone will want to know.
Win, lose, or draw. Win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, no, it's for me, it's just one of those, take it all with a pinch of salt. Like, everyone can do an introduction video, but the takeaway is not necessarily about the words. It's more about the approach. I think you hear the right things that you want, because it's all about, what were we last month, last year? What do we need to be more of to get better outcomes? And I think he kind of ticked all of those boxes in the first things he said, not priority 5, 6, or 7, but priority 1, 2, or 3. Disciplined, organized, prepared, structured, and those sorts of things. I have full confidence that this guy is a tactically adept enough manager to be able to do it. And like we just spoke about in the previous break there, that with his team around him, he's going to feel confident. He's going to feel at home. It's going to be, for all of them, it's not like they're going to a new place by themselves. They're walking into a bigger environment, but they have their kind of comfort blanket around them a little bit, which is, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think it's a nice thing that they have their camaraderie, and then hopefully they can disseminate that information. Really, really, really strong introductory interview, but I think there was a strong introductory interview from Ange Postecoglou. There was a strong one from Conte, a strong one from Mourinho. Nuno was a little bit suspicious. I'll make you proud kind of thing. But I think that the most important takeaway for me was there was a lot of humility there, like you said, Dave. It was very humble, paid the correct amount of respect to what's just been achieved at the football club, doesn't want to take anything away. And he says he wants to lean from that into that and move us forward with the benefits of that behind us, lean the wind into our sails kind of motif. And so for me, yeah, in terms of like an introductory interview, it's a 10 out of 10. But then you could make the same argument, a 10 out of 10 from what you saw from Daniel Levy and Vinay a couple of days ago in terms of words. It's just around whether or not these things all manifest the way they do. But the key component here is that not only does Thomas Frank sort of get the ball rolling nicely, but on top of that, that he's given the tools to work with. And that's the most important thing.
I think, though, there was more substance. Kind of Swanks, I think your name is. You put Johnny's Glazing. Man said is the best manager's YouTube he's ever seen. What I said was it's the best Spurs one that I've seen that I can remember when they do the manager intro, because he didn't just glaze over stuff. I felt like he gave a lot of substance in that conversation, right? And for me, you know, he answered. Dave, did he answer questions or doubts that you may have? You had doubts about the setup. I had, you know, I didn't have so many doubts because obviously I'm a big fan, but I think there will be a lot of people out there who doubted the appointment. Having watched that video, would have definitely been won over.
100%. Look, he's won me over with that interview. And do you know what the biggest takeaway for me is? Jose, Conte, Postecoglou, their first interviews and a lot of the rhetoric was change. Yeah. Didn't hear that under Thomas Frank.
Build on
it's just about how we take what we've got and move it forward. And that eases a lot of my concerns. I'm not sitting here going change, because when you hear change, that automatically means dollar signs, and Tottenham don't really want to part with that. With Frank, it's what we've got. I realize there's been European success. Now how do we go from winning to serial winners? I like it. I like the message that's come out around about it. It's not setting off fire alarms, change. It's calming. We're going to move forward with what we've got, and this is how we're going to do it. Really like that from Thomas Frank. Really solid interview. Let's not forget how hard an interview that is to conduct and get right off the back of the emotions around Postecoglou sacking and everything else. So fair play to the guy. He's bought 100% buy-in from me there today. Absolutely.
No rebuild, a continuation on the work that he's done. We will be standing on the shoulders of Ange Postecoglou on the foundations that he built.
That also means you have to stop snagging Postecoglou and realise he's built the foundations for Frank to move forward.
All right, guys, listen, it's a perfect break. 2 hours. Final words before I do. I say, guys, Johnny, I haven't confirmed this with you, but at 8 o'clock, are you good for Football Link, or is that a bit in an hour's time?
We do 8:30, mate, so I can actually get a bite in between streaming.
Yeah, no worries. At 8:30, guys, we're going to be over on Football Inc. I'm going to put the link in just a second. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe and get over there.
Make sure you're there, guys. Make sure you're there.
I'll come to both of you for final words. Dave, final words on the on everything we've spoken about today. Essentially, Levy, the Vinny interview, what we just seen with Thomas Frank, and obviously the transfer news views includes we've gone through. Lots of things have to happen over the next 2 months to get us ready for was it August the 12th? For PSG. Final words, mate, and what's coming up on the Irish Hotspur, buddy?
Look, the way I see it is, Sean, I like the rhetoric I'm hearing the last couple of days from Levy, Vinay, the ambition, the fact that they've actually put a definitive outcome on it, where Levy was very hesitant before. I really like Frank's interview. It's not about change, and pressing all the fire alarms. It's about building off what we've got and moving forward, which I really like. Really liking the rhetoric. However, words are one thing, actions are another. Are the board going to build off the back of this and deliver the players? That's where I'm a little bit concerned, because at the end of the day, you can make all these structural changes you want. It will not make a difference unless you bring some quality players in on that football pitch. Because at the end of the day, Vinay can't kick a ball, Thomas Frank can't kick a ball, none of the coaches can kick a ball for these players. It's up to the players on the pitch. And there has to be a recognition. Okay, some people say the squad's better than what it looks, but also I think them saying people understand there does need to be some quality brought in. So it's all one thing changing all the structure in place. Let's see the changes on the football pitch, and let's go into a season for once all together, actually going, do you know what? Everything's fixed. Let's fucking go. What's stopping us? That would be nice, rather than going, do you know what? This could come back and bite us. That could come back and bite us. And almost predicting your season's going to end in a disaster before it does. Let's actually have some excitement and generate some excitement. Remember who we are, European champions. Build off the back of that, and let's go into next season. Serial winners. That's what we want to be here.
Brilliant.
Get over to Irish Hotspur, guys. Is there any shows coming up, Dave? Just quickly, last thing before I come to Johnny.
Today, no. I done my live show this morning with the fixture list announcement. Then I had to go and get a suit fitting. Now I've one or two other bits I have to go and do. But those of you who do frequent the Irish Hotspur and haven't seen it today, it is Jack's birthday. I did put up a post in the community section of the channel. If you could just go there and wish him a happy birthday underneath and let him know that everybody still loves him and stuff like that, that would be absolutely brilliant. And then I'll be back tomorrow with a reaction to the Frank interview. I can't wait. I love it. Appreciate you, Dave. Johnny, mate.
What can I say, mate? I'm so excited. I'm going to go and have a Thomas Frank, I think.
Very good. Very good. Nice. Mate, it is one of those moments, but, we need to, and on top of that, mate, listen, lovely little messages there. Decent interview from Daniel Levy. Need to get these players in. And not a bad little start to we haven't even spoken about it, but the start to the Premier League season is it's not a bad little fixture list as well. Good, right. Everything's moving in the right direction, right?
From small acorns, the big trees grow. Let's hope we're planting a massive oak, eh?
You need water for that to happen.
I feel like you'll be pulling off a massive oak in a minute, Johnny, won't you, mate?
Yeah, I know, man. I'm just trying to keep the table still.
Johnny needs a lie down. We need to get a damn clot on Johnny's head.
I need some cold water. He loves it. Some cold water. He's given me everything that I asked for.
Please get over to Football Inc. Johnny and I's sort of second channel will be over there in about 18 minutes time at 8:30, talking about all the roundup of everything that's going on in the world of football.
Yeah, be there. And thanks, guys. Thanks everyone in the chat for listening to us, and thanks very much to Sean and Dave. It's great, always great when we do the Devil's Advocate. And today was a weird day because we all seem to be more or less off the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, that won't last. We'll wait. Next week I'll be back. Yeah. I respectfully disagree, Dave. You absolute fucking mug, and here's why.
Honestly, look. We've been here before with Tottenham, right? We brought in Ange, everything was rosy. Within a few months, we're ripping each other's heads off. I hope the same doesn't happen again, but we'll wait and see.
It will happen again. It always does.
Guys, make sure you run the likes up here for Sean as well, by the way. Streaming ain't easy, and at the rate that Sean's doing it, it fucking certainly ain't easy, especially when you're trying to juggle life. So, guys, make sure you smash the like and appreciate the quality of the streams he's bringing you. It's one thing putting out streams, but it's one thing giving quality to the streams. Make sure you run them likes up.
It's easy to give quality when I got you two lovely legends next to me. Boys and girls, thanks so much for joining. Love you all. Thank you for the super chat. What's that, Dave?
We're starting to become like Levy and Vinay.
Yeah. Go on.
Got a bottle of red wine in the
post. Get the red wine out, whatever you do, for God's sake, man. I'm going.
Leave it there. We'll see you on Football Week in about an hour and 20. Love you all. Thanks so much. See you soon. As always, come on.
You Spurs.
Spurs.